Usually, when a machine breaks down, there's a really clear warning sign.
Right, like a red light flashing or something.
Exactly, a red light on the dashboard, or maybe you hear this very specific localized rattle under the hood. You can just point right at it and say, there's the problem, let's fix that part.
Yeah, but it's rarely that simple, is it?
No, not today. Because what happens when the entire grid is just humming at this dangerous, unfamiliar frequency? Like when every single part of the machine is running hot at the exact same time.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at today.
It really is. So we're looking at a stack of sources today from Friday, April 24th, 2026, and they paint this intense picture of systems under just immense, almost unimaginable stress.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we're going from 84-year-olds literally fainting in record-breaking voting lines to a massive diplomatic standoff, and all the way to this silent, incredibly unsettling string of dead hypersonic scientists. We are going to dive into all of it.
Yeah, and before we jump into the actual mechanics of all these stress systems, I do want to establish a really firm ground rule for our deep dive today.
Good call.
Because a significant portion of our sources involves some highly charged political friction, specifically concerning the Election Commission of India, the Congress Party, the BJP, and former U.S. President Donald Trump.
Right.
So we just need to make it crystal clear to you, the listener, we are not taking any sides or endorsing any viewpoints today, like at all.
Definitely not.
Our job is strictly to report the facts, the timelines, and the arguments exactly as they appear in the source material, so you can just understand the current landscape.
Yep.
We're just here to decode the mechanisms, not to tell you how to feel about them.
Absolutely. Just laying it out there. And I think to understand how these systems are straining, we really have to start right at the foundation of any democracy, which is the voters.
A ground level.
Yeah. I was reading through the field reports from Phase 1 of the assembly elections in West Bengal, and the sheer volume of humanity moving through these polling stations, I mean, it's hard to wrap my head around. Are the numbers actually as unprecedented as they look?
They really are. I mean, Chief Election Commissioner Ganesh Kumar confirmed a massive 92.88% voter turnout in West Bengal.
Wow. 92.88%.
Yeah. And to put that into perspective, that is the highest polling percentage recorded in the state since 1947.
That is wild.
Right. If you look back at the 2021 assembly election, which, was heavily polarized and took place right in the middle of a pandemic, the turnout was 82.30%. So jumping up by 10 full percentage points is just a monumental shift. And the Election Commission is actually crediting this surge entirely to their SVEEP initiative.
Okay, yeah, I saw that acronym in the sources SVEEP and also something else called the SIR exercise. What do those actually mean for, the average voter?
So SVEEP stands for Systematic Voters Education and Electoral Participation.
Okay, quite the mouthful.
It is, yeah. But it isn't just like a poster campaign. It's this massive grassroots logistical exercise to physically educate people on the mechanics of voting, getting them registered, and actually mobilizing them to the booths.
No. And
then the SIR exercise works hand in hand with that to update the electoral rolls. So when a system effectively pushes that hard, you get 92.88% of people actually showing up.
But I do want to push back on that a little bit, or at least zoom in.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the micro-level data, like what was happening on the ground in Chennai, you really start to see the human stress points in that massive system.
Oh, definitely. The heat alone was brutal.
Exactly. You had neighborhoods like Parambar hitting almost 90% turnout and Kalathur at 86.11%.
Yeah.
But the cost of that turnout was just grueling. I mean, you have stories of people like 74-year-old Lalitha who waited over an hour in sweltering heat.
Yeah.
She noted that they at least had seating and fans, but another voter at her booth literally fainted and required first aid.
Right, which really highlights what the voters are actually braving these conditions for. Because if you look at the ground reports, they are out there talking about grand political theory.
No, not at all.
Like, there's a voter named Anitha who recently moved to Kalathur, and she said she showed up specifically to vote for whoever would maintain the continuous water supply and good roads, because she used to deal with horrific flooding in Vilivakam.
Right. It's about those daily, tangible realities.
Exactly.
Like in Egmore, there was this voter named Mamakandan who was standing in line just demanding world-class upgrades for corporation schools, pointing out that they lack basic amenities.
Yeah.
And then you have this incredible story of Kirthana, who traveled all the way from Bengaluru just to vote for TVK candidate C. Joseph Vijay.
The actor, right.
Yeah, well, his party, the TVK Tamalaga Vetri Kazhagam, is relatively new, and she traveled across state lines simply because she hopes he will tackle substance abuse issues in her community.
But, you know, when a system is running this hot, things inevitably fall through the
Oh,
cracks.
for sure.
Take the story of 84-year-old M.K. Rajagopalan. For the first time in 60 years, he couldn't vote.
That broke my heart reading that.
It's so sad. His name just vanished from the rolls after the SIR second revision, which is essentially a mandatory audit of the voter list to remove duplicates or deceased individuals.
Right.
And despite him asking officials and neighbors for help, a clerical error basically meant a man who views voting as his lifelong duty was simply turned away.
And it's just wild to think about Mr. Rajagopalan politely asking for his missing ballot, completely disconnected from the absolute war happening at the top of the electoral food chain.
Oh, yeah, the contrast is stark.
Because while voters are struggling with basic infrastructure and heat, the political parties and the election commission are locked in this fierce procedural battle. It feels like, I don't know, it's like a referee handing out a red card to a team captain 10 minutes before the World Cup final. The timing of the penalty almost eclipses the penalty itself.
That is exactly what the Congress Party is arguing right now. They officially accuse the Election Commission of bias after a show cause notice was sent to their president, Mallikarjun Kharge.
And he was given a 24-hour deadline to respond, right?
Exactly. Which, as you pointed out with your referee analogy, is incredibly disruptive when you're in the middle of an active campaign.
And Jairam Ramesh, the Congress General Secretary, he didn't just complain about the timing, though. He pointed out some very specific procedural anomalies.
Yes, he did. Ramesh noted that 2 notices were issued on April 22nd with the exact same reference number.
Wait, 2 notices on the same day?
Yeah, but they were signed by different officials.
Okay, that's weird.
And it gets weirder. One version cited Trinamool Congress MP Derek O'Brien as the complainant. But the version that was actually uploaded to the public EC website mysteriously omitted O'Brien's name entirely. So Congress argues this suggests a, quote, mechanical issuance of notices, implying the commission is just sort of rubber stamping complaints that align with the ruling party's interests without proper review.
And Congress is countering by saying, look at what you're ignoring.
Right.
They claim the Election Commission is turning a blind eye to model code of conduct violations by BJP leaders. They specifically pointed to Prime Minister Modi's address to the nation after the failure of the Constitution 131st Amendment bill.
Yes.
They claimed that speech contained direct political attacks disguised as an official address. And they also flagged Home Minister Amit Shah for an alleged quid pro quo cash promise for votes.
And regarding the specific notice against Card, Congress defended him by clarifying the context of his words. They argued he didn't actually call the prime minister a terrorist, as the complaint alleged.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they said he was actually criticizing investigative agencies for a broader pattern of threatening political opponents.
Okay, so you have a democratic system straining to manage millions of people while the institutions themselves are fracturing under the pressure. But if it's that messy when the state tries to enforce rules on millions of visible voters,
Yeah.
what happens when the state is asked to enforce rules on something entirely invisible, like personal faith? Because the Supreme Court of India just made a fascinating observation about exactly that.
They did. We're looking at a 9-judge bench led by Chief Justice Surya Kant, alongside Justices Nagaratna, Sundresh Kumar, and Mahadevan.
That's a heavy-hitting bench.
And they are making a profound statement about the limits of state power. They declared that the manner and mode of worship chosen by a devotee is a non-justiciable right. Essentially, courts simply cannot and should not interfere in how someone prays.
Wait, I need to stop you there. Isn't this the same Supreme Court that delivered the famous Sabarimala verdict a few years ago?
Yes, it is.
Where they explicitly intervened in a religious tradition to mandate that women of all ages must be allowed to enter the temple.
Exactly. And that is why this current observation is so significant. It's a massive philosophical pivot. During the hearings, senior advocate Jaimuth Raj argued about the deeply decentralized nature of Hinduism. He explained that almost every village has a gram devta, or a village deity.
Right.
Families have their kul devta, their ancestral deity, and individuals choose their ishta devta, their personal deity. There is no single uniform religious text governing all these different practices.
So how does the law actually handle that? I mean, if the court is saying faith itself can't be subjected to tests of validity, where do they draw the line when a local tradition might conflict with broader constitutional rights?
While the bench leaned heavily on Article 25 of the Indian Constitution, which guarantees the freedom of conscience and the right to practice religion, they argued that the manner of worship is entirely a, quote, private space between the devotee and God.
Wow.
Yeah, Justice Mahadevan explicitly stated that faith cannot be subjected to tests of validity. So the core takeaway is that as long as it is an essential religious practice embedded in a community's belief system, the state needs to step completely back.
It's an incredibly restrained, hands-off approach. But I think what makes this so striking is reading it right next to a gritty, horrific criminal investigation happening at the exact same time.
Oh, the contrast is jarring.
Yeah, where the state is absolutely stepping in, crossing borders, and using full force. I'm talking about the Rahul Meena case.
Right. While the highest court is debating the boundaries of private faith, law enforcement on the ground is demonstrating what happens when institutional boundaries must be aggressively crossed to ensure public safety.
Exactly.
Rahul Meena is a 19-year-old who was arrested in Delhi's Dwarka neighborhood for the brutal rape and murder of a 21-year-old woman in the Kailash Hills area.
And the timeline of this crime is just chilling.
It really is.
CCTV puts him at the Kailash Hills residence from 6:49 to 7:20 a.m. He used to work there as domestic help. But what makes this a massive cross-border issue is that Rajasthan police were already hunting him for another rape in Alwar, which he committed just hours before the Delhi murder.
Yeah, the psychological details of the timeline are terrifying. The Alwar survivor's husband reported that he actually attended a wedding with Rahul that Tuesday evening.
Wait.
Yeah, they sat there and played online Ludo together.
He played Ludo with the husband?
Yes, online Ludo. The husband stayed at the wedding overnight. Rahul allegedly left, went back to the village, assaulted the woman, and threatened to kill her if she spoke out. And then he immediately traveled across state lines to Delhi and committed the murder early the next morning.
So how does a stress system handle a serial offender moving that fast across jurisdictions?
Through rapid, almost instantaneous interstate coordination, Rajasthan police formed a special team the very moment he was arrested in Delhi. They detained over 6 people for questioning locally and immediately began sharing all their forensic findings with Delhi police.
Wow.
It is a grim but effective example of the system working exactly as it should across borders to map out a predator's movements.
It's intense. But if we pan out from police crossing state borders to resources and rhetoric crossing international borders, that concept of friction becomes the defining feature of the global chessboard right now.
Oh, absolutely.
We are looking at a world where resources, aggressive diplomacy, and cutting-edge technology are triggering massive global anxiety.
Let's start with the resources, because if we connect this to the bigger picture, you can literally see how global conflict dictates the everyday reality. For you, the listener,
Yeah.
External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar just launched the upcoming 4th India-Africa Forum Summit, the IAFSV, which is scheduled for late May. And he called the partnership a message of stability in a turbulent world.
Right, but why the sudden pivot to Africa right now?
Because of the ongoing U.S.-Israel war on Iran.
Oh, okay.
When conflict erupts in that region, shipping lanes are disrupted, insurance premiums for cargo ships skyrocket, and the physical transit of goods slows to a crawl. That war has severely disrupted the supply of fertilizers from Gulf countries like Qatar and Saudi Arabia.
So it's a food security issue.
Exactly. If you're a farmer in India staring down the upcoming monsoon season, you don't care about Middle Eastern geopolitics. You just desperately need your fertilizer to ensure your crop survives.
Makes total sense.
So India is aggressively pivoting to Africa. They're targeting countries like Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, and Morocco to secure those crucial agricultural needs. India has rapidly opened 17 new missions there, bringing the total to 46.
Wow.
Jaishankar even emphasized the living bridge of the 3 million-strong Indian diaspora in Africa. This isn't just diplomacy, it's a highly pragmatic maneuver to make sure people can eat.
It's fascinating. India is playing this quiet, strategic game of resource monopoly in Africa to secure supply chains. But meanwhile, across the world, someone is loudly flipping the diplomatic board and throwing the pieces everywhere.
You're talking about Trump.
Yeah. Former U.S. President Donald Trump shared a 4-page transcription on his platform, Truth Social, from conservative podcast host Michael Savage. And the language was incredibly hostile.
Yeah, Savage explicitly described India as a hellhole. But he also made very specific claims. He claimed that Indian immigrants in the U.S. tech sector refused to hire white native-born Americans, and he inaccurately claimed they lack English proficiency.
And India didn't just ignore it. The blowback was immediate.
Oh, it was. India's foreign ministry spokesperson, Ranthir Jaiswal, strongly condemned it. U.S. Congressman Ami Bera, a Democrat of Indian origin, called it deeply offensive, noting that Trump clearly hasn't experienced the struggles of immigrant families trying to build a life.
Right.
And the Hindu American Foundation warned that this kind of rhetoric directly fuels xenophobia.
But why is Trump amplifying this now? Like, what is the underlying tension here?
You really have to look at the broader context of the relationship. Trump is reportedly still angry that Prime Minister Modi downplayed Trump's claimed role as a mediator during a past India-Pakistan conflict.
Oh, right, I remember that.
And during his presidency, Trump maintained steep tariffs on India, viewing trade relations highly transactionally. And crucially, this entire social media controversy is erupting right before U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is supposed to visit New Delhi.
Talk about awkward timing.
Exactly. It injects a massive amount of volatility into what should be a standard diplomatic visit.
So you have supply chains breaking down and diplomacy playing out over angry social media posts. But honestly, all of that feels like a distraction compared to the shadow war happening in the background.
Yeah, this is the really wild stuff.
There is a deeply unsettling mystery surrounding the deaths and disappearances of top defense scientists in both the U.S. and China. We are talking about 11 American and 9 Chinese scientists.
And we really need to clarify why these specific scientists matter. These aren't just, academic researchers. They are the leading minds in artificial intelligence, hypersonic weapons, nuclear research, and space defense.
The big stuff.
The biggest. Whoever masters AI-driven hypersonics, which are basically missiles that travel at Mach 5 and can maneuver unpredictably, essentially renders the other country's entire missile defense system completely obsolete.
Wow.
It changes the global balance of power overnight. So in Washington, Republican Representative Eric Burleson publicly suggested the string of deaths could be a foreign operation. Trump actually acknowledged the seriousness of it, and the FBI is actively investigating.
The American investigations are super tight-lipped, but the details coming out of China read like a literal sci-fi spy thriller.
They really do.
Look at the case of 38-year-old Feng Yang. He was a brilliant professor at the National University of Defense Technology, a key figure in running AI-driven simulations for a potential Taiwan conflict. And then he suddenly dies in a late-night car crash in Beijing.
Now, car crashes happen, obviously.
Oh.
But what caught the attention of international intelligence analysts is how the Chinese state actually handled his death.
Right.
He was buried at the elite Baboshan Cemetery, which is a highly prestigious location. But more importantly, his death was officially described as a sacrifice while performing official duties.
A sacrifice?
Yes. That is an incredibly specific, highly unusual term. It's typically reserved strictly for military personnel who die in the line of duty, not civilian researchers who are victims of standard traffic accidents.
And he's just one data point. You have a microelectronics specialist dying in 2018, a top chemist in 2023, data scientists, space experts, 2 major hypersonics researchers, Fang Daning and Yan Hong, both died just early this year in 2026.
Yeah, and analysts are pointing out that these specific fields, the ones absolutely vital to national security, are vastly disproportionately represented in these incidents.
Right.
While there's no hard public evidence of a coordinated assassination campaign, it is instantly reviving memories of the targeted killings of Iranian nuclear scientists a decade ago. It forces every intelligence agency to ask, are we watching a tragic statistical anomaly where the quiet, systematic elimination of strategic assets by rival nations?
It is incredibly heavy. Shadow wars, institutional breakdowns, global supply chains fraying. Which is why I think we really need to end today by talking about the ultimate release valve for all this pressure.
It's a cricket match.
Yes. Because after looking at all these invisible, massive systemic stressors, we have to look at how conflict plays out when it is put on a highly visible, strictly regulated stage with clear rules and a scoreboard. I am talking about the IPL El Clasico at Wankhede Stadium.
And what a remarkably lopsided release valve it was.
It was a bloodbath.
Yeah. The Chennai Super Kings absolutely crushed the Mumbai Indians by 103 runs. To put that in perspective for you, that is the Mumbai Indians' biggest defeat by runs in their entire T20 history.
The sheer statistical anomaly of Sanju Samson's performance is just wild. He scored 101 not out.
Incredible.
It's his second century for CSK in just 7 innings. And what makes it crazy is that the next highest score on his entire team was only 22. He was essentially playing a completely different game than everyone else on the pitch. He perfectly navigated the middle overs when wickets were falling all around him, anchored the team, and then just exploded at the end, taking 31 runs off debutant Krish Bhagat.
And then the Mumbai Indians' chase collapsed almost immediately. Akhil Hossain was superb, taking 4 wickets. He celebrated with this striking masked-face gesture, but more importantly, he initiated a brutal spin choke, alongside Noor Ahmad.
I saw that term spin choke in the sources, but how does that actually work mechanically on the field?
It's a strategy of basically suffocating the batting team. By using slow spin bowlers in tandem, you take all the pace off the ball.
Okay.
So the batsmen can no longer just use the bowler's speed to deflect the ball for boundaries. They have to artificially manufacture all their own power.
Oh, I got it.
It completely stifles the run rate, builds immense psychological pressure, and forces desperate, risky shots. And it worked perfectly. Mumbai lost 9 wickets to spin, which is an IPL record at Wankhede. They folded for 104 in just 19 overs. It was a masterclass in applying systemic stress until the opponent completely breaks.
The system under stress, right there on the cricket pitch.
Exactly.
And really, that's the journey we've been on today. We started in the exhaustive heat of a Chennai voting line, watching voters demand basic infrastructure. We watched political parties wage war over procedure. We climbed to the highest courts of the land to hear them declare faith a private space, totally separate from the state.
Yeah?
We crossed the ocean to watch diplomatic spats unfold on social media over fertilizer and trade, and we waded into the absolute shadows of global espionage. It can feel overwhelming, but understanding the mechanisms behind these stress systems really does make the world a little less chaotic.
It does, but it also raises an important question for you to consider long after we sign off. We focus so much of our attention on the loud political noise, the speeches, the tweets, the show cause notices. But if the pattern of these scientists' disappearances holds true, we might be completely ignoring a silent, unseen, technological Cold War over AI and hypersonics.
Wow.
A war that will fundamentally shape the next century long after today's loud politicians are gone. Keep an eye on who is building our future and who is quietly trying to stop them.
That is exactly why we do this, because the rattle in the engine is never just a rattle. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you and stay curious. We'll catch you next time.